Before I get into it, kindly hit the subscribe button. And my name is Daniel Brooks. I was washing dishes on a quiet Wednesday evening in our apartment just outside Charlotte, North Carolina, when my fiancée Rel decided to announce the most arrogant declaration I had ever heard in our 3-year relationship. Warm water ran over a stack of plates as the dishwasher hummed in the background. What had started as a typical argument about money, she'd spent $1,200 on a designer handbag when we were supposed to be saving for our wedding, suddenly took a devastating turn. Michelle placed her freshly manicured hand on the counter and fixed me with a cold stare. Her glossy nude nails gleamed under the kitchen lights, the same ones she loved to showcase on social media with captions about soft life earned, not given. "You know what, Daniel," she said, her voice cutting through the clinking of dishes. "I could replace you in 24 hours. There are men lined up waiting for me to be single. You should be grateful I even chose you." The words hit me like ice water. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. I turned off the faucet, watched the last suds slide down the plate, and slowly dried my hands on a dish towel. My heart pounded, but somehow my voice remained steady. "Prove it," I said. She blinked, her red lips parting in surprise. "What?" I folded the towel carefully and placed it on the counter, meeting her gaze directly. "You said 24 hours. Prove it." "We're done. Your clock starts now." I checked my phone. It was 7:23 p.m. on Wednesday. A timestamp I'll never forget. Her expression shifted rapidly: confusion, amusement, anger, and finally that particular brand of smug confidence that had made me ignore too many red flags for too long. "You're bluffing," Rel said, following me as I walked toward our bedroom. "You wouldn't leave me. You can't even match your socks without me. You get lost in grocery stores. You need me." I pulled out my medium-sized suitcase, the one I used for work trips, and began packing. Michelle paced behind me, heels clicking against the hardwood, listing all the ways I'd supposedly fall apart without her. "You don't even know the streaming passwords," she scoffed. "Your mother likes me more than you. Good luck finding someone who looks like me. I'm the one who helped you get that promotion. You're literally nothing without me." That last line made me pause, not because it hurt, but because I realized she truly believed it. That belief told me everything I needed to know. I packed methodically, condensing 3 years of my life into 2 suitcases and a backpack. Michelle kept talking, sometimes blocking the drawers as if her presence alone could stop me. I stayed focused on the task at hand. I texted my friend Jerome, "Can I crash with you for a few days?" My hands trembled slightly, but I pressed send anyway. He responded within minutes, "Of course, man. Door is open." The confirmation steadied me, but what changed everything was another notification that appeared right after, a message from Sierra, Michelle's best friend, the untouchable model friend Rel had always kept at a distance from me. "I heard you're single. Michelle is already posting. Are you all right?" Sierra's message read. I stared at my phone, realizing my relationship had ended and my ex was already broadcasting it for attention. I started to type, heading to Jerome's. She gave me 24 hours to be replaced, but then hesitated. Instead, I erased it and wrote, heading out. "Can I come to your place instead? We should talk." My heart pounded as I hit send. I wasn't entirely sure why I'd asked, only that I needed perspective from someone who'd watched this relationship from the outside. Sierra lived downtown, a couple blocks from a small park where people walked their dogs in the evenings. When she opened her door, she wore grey sweatpants and a loose black sweatshirt, her hair in a simple bun. She looked nothing like the perfectly curated image Rel always flaunted. Sierra looked real, tired but steady, like someone who'd been worried about something for a long time. "Before you say anything," she said, stepping aside to let me in, "I have to tell you something I should have said 2 years ago." She led me to her living room, where photography books were stacked on the coffee table beside a half-finished mug of tea. The TV played a muted basketball game. Sierra picked up her phone, scrolled briefly, then handed it to me. "Read," she said softly. It was a text thread with Michelle from 2022. My throat tightened as I started reading. In these messages, Rel joked about keeping a hidden dating profile active just in case. She wrote about how I'd never fund the extravagant trips she wanted and how she was only with me until she found someone more fitting. She bragged about adding herself as an authorized user on my credit card for the points, squeezing value from me while scouting better options. She described a backup plan, the man named Rashad she kept warm with occasional flirty messages. My chest constricted with each line. It wasn't just shallow, it was calculated. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice rough as I sank onto her couch, the weight of what I'd read settling over me like cement. Sierra stood with her arms loosely folded, leaning against the wall with genuine pain in her expression. I tried, she said. Remember that dinner at the rooftop restaurant where I kept telling you that you deserved someone who actually saw you? When I kept asking if you were really happy. I nodded slowly. She threatened to start a rumor about me from college if I said anything specific. She told me she had doctored screenshots. It wasn't true, but I knew she could make things messy for me. I hesitated. I'm not proud of that. Sierra sat across from me in an armchair, folding one leg beneath her. I've been in love with you since that first night at my birthday party when I introduced you to her, she said quietly. I told myself she would be better for you, a more polished, more ambitious. I thought I was being unselfish by stepping back. I was wrong. I watched you dim yourself around her and kept telling myself it wasn't my place to interfere. Her eyes shone, but she didn't cry. She simply held my gaze the way someone does when they finally stop running from the truth. My mind raced back to that birthday party years ago at a lounge in uptown Charlotte. I remembered Sierra's loud laugh, how she'd been playful and confident without craving attention. I remembered Rel's entrance in a glittering dress, and how the night seemed to tilt toward her. I had noticed Sierra then, but she kept nudging me toward her friend, almost as if she'd already made a decision for me. Now, the pieces rearranged into a different picture, one that both hurt and made an odd kind of sense. That first night at Sierra's, I slept in her guest room. We talked until 4 a.m., not about us, but about the 3-year wreckage she had witnessed. Sierra showed me journal entries she'd written about wanting to tell me the truth but fearing Rel's retaliation. She described how she'd tried to nudge me away from bad patterns, gentle questions, pointed jokes, the way she sometimes went quiet when Michelle made certain comments. I didn't want to break our unspoken code, she said. Best friends aren't supposed to interfere in each other's relationships, but I also couldn't stand watching you shrink. I listened as the clock ticked softly on her wall, realizing that for the first time in a very long time, I felt something I had almost forgotten, quiet. Not the tense silence of unresolved conflict, but a deep, steady stillness. No one was demanding I perform, reassure, or explain. No one was tearing me down to feel taller. My phone buzzed occasionally from the kitchen counter, but Sierra didn't rush me to check it. She just let me talk. I told her about every insult I'd brushed aside as just her being emotional. I told her about how Rel always seemed to turn my accomplishments into something owed to her. The 24 hours began with Michelle posting a deliberately posed photo on social media. Sierra, who still shared mutual friends with her, showed me. It was Michelle on the couch with a throw blanket and wine glass, captioned, "Single and ready to elevate. Applications open." Within hours, she collected hundreds of likes and dozens of comments, laughing emojis, "Men are trash anyway," and "Their loss, sis." By midnight, she'd uploaded videos from 3 different bars asking where the real men were. The clips grew sloppier as the night progressed, her eyeliner smudging, her laugh growing harsher. Around dawn, Michelle matched with over 30 men on dating apps and posted screenshots boasting about her options. Sierra received everything through mutual friends who watched the spectacle with fascination and secondhand embarrassment. "You don't have to look," she said softly when I glanced away from one clip. "But if she tries to flip this later, I want you to have the truth." It wasn't amusing to watch Rel spin out, it was sad, like watching someone set their own house on fire then complain about the smoke. By late afternoon, Michelle took a man named Tyrone back to our old apartment. He looked like a personal trainer who sold supplements from his trunk, all muscles and practice swagger. She recorded a slow pan of his broad back as he cooked at the stove and captioned it, "Upgrade already, fire, fire, fire." Sierra's jaw clenched when she showed me. She's doing this on purpose. She knows you'll hear about it. She wants to prove a point. I felt something like grief, not because I'd lost Michelle, but because I'd spent so much time believing this person would ever treat me like anything more than a prop. By early evening, Tyrone was gone. Michelle posted and deleted a crying selfie, followed by a quote about knowing one's worth. Then came frantic calls and messages from multiple numbers, first triumphant, "See how fast I can move on," then pleading, "I didn't mean it." "Come home," then angry, "You failed my test." I blocked each one. At 7:23 p.m. the following day, the 24-hour window closed. At 7:24, Sierra posted a simple photo of us at her kitchen table eating takeout sushi. Nothing dramatic. The caption read, "Only good company." My phone buzzed relentlessly. Michelle called Sierra first, screaming so loudly that Sierra had to hold the phone away from her ear. She put it on speaker between us, looking at me as if asking whether I wanted to hear it. "You backstabbing bitch!" Rel shouted. "He is mine." Sierra's voice stayed level. "You ended it," she replied. "We're eating dinner. That's all." "I didn't end it." I was upset, and you know the code, Rel said. Best friends don't go after their friend's man. Sierra's expression hardened. Respecting people is the code. Not treating them like placeholders. Michelle hung up. Within hours, she began a smear campaign online, a series of long captions claiming Sierra had stalked me for years and ruined our relationship. She tagged most of their mutual friends and created a highlight reel titled "Betrayal," filled with cropped screenshots and vague quotes about disloyalty. She texted me from yet another new number, "Your little rebound won't last. Sierra only wants you to get back at me. She's been with half the city. You failed my test. You were supposed to chase me, not walk away." I blocked that number too. Rel's mother, Linda, called me soon after. "Daniel, sweetheart, what's this about you abandoning my daughter?" she asked, her voice full of wounded dignity and practiced outrage. I could picture her sitting on the floral sofa in her Jacksonville living room, one hand on her chest. "She said she could replace me in 24 hours, I replied steadily. I took her at her word. "That's just how she expresses anxiety," Linda insisted. She didn't mean it. She posted that photograph with another man because she was hurt. "You know how emotional she is." "She took a stranger to our apartment," I said. She recorded his back and wrote "upgrade." That wasn't anxiety. That was intention. "She's grieving," Linda persisted. "You two have invested so much. Take her back. Work it out. You'll never find another woman like her." "I know," I answered quietly. "That's precisely the point." There was a long pause, then a sharp exhale. "You're making a mistake," Linda said, and hung up without saying goodbye. The weight of her disapproval barely registered compared to the relief of not folding under it. The next wave came fast and wild. Michelle called my company to report that I'd been harassing colleagues and stealing time for dates. She left a voicemail for HR claiming I'd created a hostile work environment and used company resources to chase women. The flaw in her plan was simple: I worked from home, and my manager was my cousin Christopher, who had known me since I was 5. Christopher called me laughing so hard he had to catch his breath. She called the general inbox and said, "You've been wandering around the office asking out interns," he said. "You haven't been in the office in 6 months." I had to mute myself to stop wheezing. We documented the call and moved on. Then came the public performance of healing. Michelle posted several long captions about moving forward after emotional manipulation. She described me as controlling, insecure, and secretly jealous of her success. Her friend Felicia recorded a podcast episode about recognizing toxic partners that made implied references to me without using my name. I decided not to respond. Sierra didn't respond either. We chose silence over spectacle. In the evenings, Sierra and I went for walks around her neighborhood, past small brick houses with front porches and dogs barking lazily at passers-by. She told me about her photography projects, a series on barbershops, portraits of grandmothers with their granddaughters, studies of hands in motion. In return, I cooked her simple dinners that seemed to genuinely delight her. "You put paprika on these potatoes," she said one night, eyes widening. "This is gourmet." I laughed for the first time in days, realizing how starved I'd been for someone who appreciated ordinary effort. We kept everything platonic for 2 weeks. Even though the connection felt undeniable, we were careful with each other. There were nights when our knees brushed on the couch and we both went still, then deliberately shifted apart. We made a quiet rule not to rush. We had too much history tangled around Michelle to treat this like a rebound. Sierra admitted she'd spent years fighting back romantic feelings, redirecting them into friendship and distance. I admitted that even when I'd avoided thinking about her, part of me had always noticed how the room changed when she walked in. On a quiet Thursday night, security at Sierra's building called. "There's a distressed woman in the lobby claiming her stolen property is upstairs," the guard said. Sierra and I exchanged a look, then walked to the small security office near the entrance. On the monitors, we saw Rel, mascara streaked, holding a small cardboard box, her hair in a messy ponytail, pacing in front of the elevator and glancing at the camera with wild eyes. "Don't let her up," Sierra told security. "She doesn't live here. We don't have any of her belongings." The guard nodded and stepped outside to talk to her. Michelle began shouting that we were holding her grandmother's ashes hostage. "Her grandmother is alive and well in Tampa," Sierra muttered under her breath. When Michelle refused to leave, security called the police. While waiting, Rel started a live video on her phone, telling viewers she was trying to retrieve her belongings from her so-called best friend who stole her fiancé. Her mother, Linda, joined the comments, typing things like "Stay strong, baby. God sees everything." 2 officers arrived and began asking calm questions. "What property of yours is in this apartment?" one asked. "My emotional support hair straightener. A hoodie that's basically mine. 3 years of memories. My future," Michelle replied. The officer blinked slowly. "Do you have any actual property upstairs?" Rel lifted her chin. "Yes. My fiancé." "Is he being held against his will?" the officer asked. "Yes, he's being manipulated. They told her to leave or be trespassed." Michelle called them fascists. They escorted her to a squad car long enough to clear the lobby, then let her go with a warning. The live video captured everything. The comment section was brutal, with one person writing, "Didn't you say you could replace him in 24 hours? It's been 2 weeks." Michelle blocked that account mid-rant. Sierra turned off the monitor and leaned her forehead briefly against my shoulder. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "This isn't your fault," I said. "This is what happens when someone refuses to sit with the consequences of their words." A few days later, my former roommate Omar ran into Rel at a coffee shop downtown. Omar, with his generous heart and permanent blind spot for theatrics, texted me afterward. He said Rel had given him another dramatic monologue about abandonment, repeatedly using the word fiancé as if nothing had changed. Trying to comfort her, Omar mentioned that I'd been planning to propose before the breakup. Rel's eyes, according to him, gleamed with sudden triumph. She took that detail and spun it into a new narrative. That afternoon, she posted messages asking for donations to help her heal from stolen dreams. She listed her payment handles and announced plans to host a ceremony to marry herself as a declaration of independence. People sent money. Some believed her, others just loved a spectacle. Invitations were designed. A registry appeared, complete with luxury candles, expensive kitchen gadgets, and a designer robe that cost more than my first car payment. Karma made its entrance through a side door. Tyrone, the man from her 24-hour replacement attempt, turned out to be married. His wife, Denise, found the videos Rel had posted of his back in our kitchen with that upgrade already caption. Denise didn't confront Michelle directly. Instead, she signed Rel up for every sales presentation and coaching webinar within a 50-mile radius, essential oils, leggings, nutritional supplements, timeshare pitches, and financial freedom seminars. Rel's phone and email became flooded with invitations to buy miracle products. Denise also found out where Rel worked and sent her employer screenshots of her daytime social media posts and clips from the lobby incident. Rel's boss, already wary of her constant personal emergencies, put her on a performance improvement plan that soon became a termination letter. Sierra and I made our relationship official that same week. We didn't announce anything publicly, we simply acknowledged it to ourselves and our families and began to live accordingly. We visited the farmer's market on Saturdays, arguing amiably about which tomatoes were best for roasting. Sierra favored heirlooms with odd shapes and colors, I preferred uniform reds I could slice cleanly. We listened to jazz records and tried learning classic slow dance steps in the kitchen, sometimes stepping on each other's toes and collapsing in laughter, hands still linked. We made a small life that felt correct, one careful choice at a time. Michelle found out anyway. Her friend Erica saw us holding hands near a jam stand at the farmer's market and reported back. Shortly after, Michelle created a 42-slide presentation about why Sierra had been toxic for years and sent it to their entire friend group. The presentation included screenshots of a 2019 conversation where Sierra told her a certain haircut wasn't flattering, a chart tallying every perceived betrayal, including "I didn't like my post fast enough," a timeline suggesting Sierra had plotted to steal me from the very first day, and poorly edited photos of Sierra next to random men to imply affairs. The most infamous slide was titled "Why I Am Actually the Victim," with 15 bullet points and aggressive font. Someone from the group leaked the deck. People laughed at the absurdity, but they also noticed parts where Michelle accidentally admitted to lying, bragging about exaggerating her income to impress dates, telling other men I was unskilled to make them feel superior, inventing a non-existent trust fund to seem elite, even forging a recommendation letter for her job. Her manager saw the document, and the performance improvement plan became a termination letter within days. 6 months passed. Michelle went ahead with her ceremony to marry herself in a small rented event space outside Atlanta. 12 people attended, including her mother, her sister Aisha, and a handful of acquaintances drawn to spectacle. Michelle wore a $3,000 gown she couldn't afford and made vows to herself about never settling for less than she deserved. She had a first dance alone to a pop song about moving on while Aisha filmed, trying not to show the nearly empty room. I didn't watch more than a few seconds when clips inevitably landed in my messages from curious friends. I turned back to Sierra in the quiet of our apartment. Meanwhile, Rel couldn't seem to replace me as promised. Every man lasted about 2 weeks. Her social media became a graveyard of deleted couple photos. She would post a picture of hand-holding in a cafe with "Finally found my king," only to delete it days later when he vanished or disappointed her. There was Damien, who pitched cryptocurrency while ignoring basic arithmetic. There was Marlon, who flirted openly with Aisha in the comments. There was Kendrick, who brought his mother to a third date and called it proof of his family values. There was Phoenix, who spoke only in motivational quotes and ended every text with a flame emoji. And there was a 22-year-old content creator named Jax, who called her Amber during an intimate moment, then asked for brand collaboration introductions. Michelle cycled through them the way someone tries on outfits, convinced the next one would fit perfectly. Sierra and I moved in together after a year of steady, deliberate dating. We adopted a shelter cat and named him Dumpling because he insisted on curling into a ball whenever he napped. Dumpling decided I was acceptable. Sierra, however, was essential. We started an herb garden on the balcony, basil, rosemary, mint in terracotta pots lined along the rail. Sierra made a small framed sign that simply said water, sunlight, patience that hung near the sliding door, a quiet mantra. We cooked more. We learned to relax. We learned that apologies could be short and sincere. We learned that dishes could be a shared act instead of a battleground. It felt like stepping into a different life and finding that everything finally fit. Michelle eventually learned about our move in the strangest way. Sierra updated her address for a professional directory, and the change surfaced in a business network feed. One of Michelle's acquaintances sent her a screenshot. The meltdown arrived in my mother's inbox, a 6-page email about how I was throwing away my real future and how she was willing to forgive me if I returned to the right path. At the end, Rel described Sierra as a home wrecker and claimed I was under some kind of spell. My mother added a single line above the forwarded message, "This young woman needs therapy. Also, please bring Sierra to Sunday dinner. Love you." That Sunday, Sierra came. My mother pulled me aside as Sierra laughed with my cousins about a photo of Dumpling in a paper bag. "You look rested," my mother said. "Your shoulders are finally down." I smiled. "I feel like I'm returning to myself," I answered. "Keep that," she told me. "Hold it like something fragile and true." Exactly 24 months after Rel declared she could replace me in a day, she texted me from yet another new number, "I know you'll read this. I'm getting married next month to a surgeon who drives a Tesla and has a home in the hills." I won. I didn't respond. Curiosity, however, is a stubborn habit. I checked public information. The surgeon was a first-year medical student named Dominic. The Tesla was a 2015 model with over 100,000 miles. The home in the hills was a pool house belonging to his parents in a suburb outside Los Angeles. If Rel was happy, I genuinely wished her well. Sierra and I had our own news. We'd gotten engaged 2 weeks earlier in the same farmer's market where we'd taken our first easy breath together. I'd asked a violinist who sometimes played near the bakery stall to wait around the corner and play a simple melody when I gave the signal. Sierra noticed immediately. "You planned a soundtrack?" she asked with a half smile as the music drifted toward us. "I planned a life," I said. I told her I wanted to spend the rest of my days cooking with her, holding umbrellas together in sudden rain, and listening to her talk about light and angles and how a lens can tell the truth. She said yes with tears on her cheeks, and I held her hand like it was something sacred. Linda eventually called me, not to congratulate us, but to ask if Sierra and I would consider a double wedding with Rel and Dominic to save money for everyone involved. I laughed so hard I dropped my phone on the couch. When I picked it up, Linda was waiting. "Daniel," she said sharply. "This is a practical idea. 2 birds, 1 stone. "Linda," I replied, still smiling, "your daughter said she could replace me in 24 hours. It's been 24 months. She bristled. "People make mistakes," she said. "This isn't a mistake," I answered. "This is the consequence of believing people are disposable." She hung up without saying goodbye. The planning for Rel and Dominic's wedding continued in fits and starts. Sierra learned through colleagues that Dominic was kind, earnest, hard-working, and perhaps too trusting for his own good. We hoped they would be good for each other. Then Aisha messaged Sierra quietly. Michelle had told Dominic that I had stolen a family heirloom engagement ring from her apartment, an alleged 3-carat diamond that had supposedly belonged to their grandmother, and that I was refusing to return it out of spite. In reality, I'd returned the ring I'd purchased for Rel to the jeweler months ago and used part of that refund toward Sierra's ring, a modest, elegant band that fit her hand the way soft light fits a room. Dominic, wanting to do right by Rel, had bought a replacement ring he could afford, a 1/2-carat stone, and gone into debt after Rel insisted she needed at least 2 carats to heal from the trauma. Aisha had kept quiet until she saw Dominic's financial strain. Their grandmother, very much alive in Jacksonville, wore her rings daily and had never parted with them. Aisha sent Sierra screenshots of Rel crying to Linda about that tiny ring and how she deserved better after everything she had endured. The lie surfaced. Dominic confronted Michelle, and the wedding plan stalled, then collapsed entirely. Rel returned to dating apps with a profile that read, "No time for games." Previous engagement stolen by a bitter ex and his unstable girlfriend. Seeking a real man. I saw it only because someone sent me a screenshot, adding a weary eye roll emoji. I thought that might be the end, but endings have a way of lingering. One afternoon, as Sierra edited portraits at her desk and I chopped vegetables for dinner, my phone buzzed again from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but old habits die slowly. It was Rel. "I know you're reading," she wrote. You think you won, but you didn't. I will have the life I deserve. I looked over at Sierra, her face lit by the soft glow of her monitor, concentration smoothing her features. She glanced up. Do you want to block that one too? She asked. Yes, I said. But first, I'm going to finish cooking you dinner. Sundays at my mother's house became an anchor. Sierra helped in the kitchen, learning how to season collard greens the way my grandmother had taught us. When he's quiet, he's thinking about how to fix a problem before it breaks, my mother told Sierra one evening as they sat together at the table. When he's loud, he's trying to make everyone comfortable. If he starts making jokes, he's probably anxious. If he starts cleaning, he's very anxious. If you tell him directly what you need, he will try his best to give it. Sierra listened like she was memorizing a recipe. And what does he do when he's content? She asked gently. My mother smiled. He cooks too much food, she said, and insists you eat seconds. That night back home, Sierra teased me when I piled more macaroni and cheese on her plate. Your mother warned me about this, she said. She told me this is how you say I love you. I paused, spoon hovering above the dish. She was right, I said. Sierra reached across the table and took my hand. It rained on a Tuesday, a steady grey drizzle that made the whole city feel like it had exhaled. We decided to dance in the kitchen, not with perfect steps, but with intention. Sierra laughed when I spun her and almost slipped in my socks. Careful, she said. I'm fragile porcelain. No, I answered, studying us both. You're forged steel dressed as porcelain. She rested her forehead against mine. We're going to be all right, she said. We already are, I replied. When I thought about the last 2 years, there was no triumph in me, only relief, a deep, quiet relief that hummed under everything else. Rel's 24 hours ran out 730 days ago. Time doesn't heal everything, it simply tells you what mattered and what didn't. It shows whether a person is growing or just performing growth, whether you're telling yourself the truth or repeating a script that never fit. Sierra met Aisha for coffee one afternoon at a small cafe near the river. When Sierra came home, she set her bag down and leaned against the counter. Aisha is kind, she said. She's weary but kind. She keeps trying to hold the family together while refusing to excuse everything. That's a hard balance. I nodded. Sometimes that's the hardest job. Sierra put a hand on my shoulder. Aisha also said Rel checks your profile daily, she added gently. I exhaled slowly, picturing Michelle scrolling through curated updates of a life that no longer included her. Then I thought, here is my message, carried by the air, not bothering to put it into text. The hours passed. The world kept turning. Please let it go. Some things aren't meant to be answered directly. Before I continue, kindly hit the subscribe button if you haven't. On the day we picked up Sierra's ring from the jeweler, the clerk polished it carefully and held it in her gloved palm. It's beautiful, she said. It looks like it belongs to her. Sierra smiled. It does, she said. We walked outside into bright sunlight. Sierra held her hand up, not to show the ring to the world, but to watch the way the stone caught the light and returned it softly. It's enough, she said. It's exactly enough, I agreed. There was no urge to compare, to upgrade, to impress anyone else. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. We made our wedding guest list at the dining table, sheets of paper spread between mugs of tea and a small vase of grocery store flowers. Family, friends who stayed, friends who returned after realizing the truth, colleagues who had become something more. We chose a small venue with trees and a simple arch just outside the city, with enough space for people to talk without shouting. No microphones, no grand gestures, no scripted speeches. We wanted people to feel like they'd been invited into a home, even if it was a garden. Sometimes I catch my reflection in a window and don't recognize the man who looks rested, who smiles with his entire face instead of just his mouth. It's a quiet shock every time. Then Dumpling weaves around my ankles and Sierra calls from the other room asking whether basil goes better with lemon or garlic on roasted fish. Both, I call back, but start with lemon. She laughs, and the sound moves through the apartment like a soft current. Life can be ordinary, and that is its blessing. Ordinary is where you notice someone took out the trash without being asked. It's where you realize someone learned your coffee order in your silences. Rel once told me that love was proof of status, that if someone like her chose you, it meant you were extraordinary by association. But real love isn't an accessory, it's a practice, an agreement you renew every day to see each other as full human beings, not as evidence of your own worth. I wish someone had taught Rel that when she was young. I wish someone had told her that beauty isn't a currency she has to spend constantly to feel valuable. Dominic sent a short message through a mutual acquaintance after everything collapsed between him and Michelle. Tell him thank you for not responding publicly when it all went down. Tell him I'm all right. I told the acquaintance to pass along that I wished Dominic well and hoped his next person would be tender with him. His life was his to build. Mine was mine. One evening, Sierra opened a letter from an arts organization. She had applied for a grant to fund a portrait series of hair salons in historically black neighborhoods across several American cities. She read the first line, covered her mouth, and handed me the letter, eyes shining. She'd been awarded the grant. We danced again in our kitchen, this time on purpose, and I joked that we'd become experts at dancing before the wedding. We already are, she said, and this time it felt entirely true. People sometimes ask how I didn't see all the red flags with Michelle sooner. The answer is unsatisfying, I did see them. I just told myself that love meant accepting flaws generously, that patience was proof of commitment. It does, but only when the flaws are ordinary human ones, messy schedules, occasional moodiness, small misunderstandings. There's a difference between imperfect habits and fundamental character issues. One can be softened by patience, the other requires transformation that can't be forced from the outside. You can't love someone hard enough to make them see other people as real. Sierra and I took a small road trip down the coast one weekend, stopping at a quiet stretch of beach in South Carolina where the sand squeaked under our shoes. We walked along the waterline while pelicans skimmed low over the waves. Do you ever think about who you were 2 years ago? She asked as we watched a ship move slowly across the horizon. Yes, I said. He thought endurance was the same as commitment. He believed staying no matter what was proof of love. Sierra squeezed my hand. What does he think now? She asked. He thinks commitment is saying yes to what is good and no to what isn't, I answered clearly and without theater. Sierra nodded. Good, she said. Let's keep choosing well. On the drive back, we stopped at a roadside stand for boiled peanuts and sweet tea. Sierra photographed the vendor's hands as he scooped peanuts into paper bags, capturing the glint of sun on his wedding band. She had a way of making every ordinary moment look like something worth framing. We returned to the farmer's market where I had proposed and bought a bouquet from the same vendor. The florist recognized us. Back for another important day, she asked, wrapping the stems in brown paper. Sierra tilted her head toward me, smiling. Every day can be an important day, I said. The florist nodded. That's the secret, she replied. The ordinary days hold the world together. I thought of dishes shared instead of argued over, of walks taken without checking my phone, of laughter that didn't need to be broadcast to count. If Rel hears any of this through mutual acquaintances and the quiet channels of curiosity, I hope one thing for her, that she learns to stop counting. The 24 hours ended long ago. The calendar kept turning. The measure that matters now isn't how quickly she can find a replacement, but how slowly she can learn to see. People aren't roles. They aren't upgrades. They aren't evidence. They're complicated and full of private constellations you can only trace if you sit with them in the dark and listen. As for me, I'll water our garden and watch Dumpling fall asleep in a patch of sunlight. I'll cook dinner for my fiancée, Sierra, who sees me as a person and not a placeholder. There will be no slide decks, no lobby performances, no grand policies for how to feel. There will be basil, rosemary, and mint. There will be a sharp knife, a clean pan, and two people who chose each other and keep choosing each other. One evening, our friend Jerome rang the doorbell and held up a cardboard box filled with old vinyl records he'd found at a yard sale, jazz, soul, a few R&B classics with slightly worn covers. For the couple who thinks they're too good for streaming playlists, he joked as he stepped inside. We laughed, cleared space near the turntable, and put one on. The horns filled the room with something warm and generous. Sierra stepped into the living room and slid her hand into mine. "Ready?" she asked. "Always," I said. We danced without an audience under our ordinary ceiling in our ordinary home, with our lives remaining entirely ours. Thank you for following me on this journey. Kindly subscribe to this channel and leave your comments below.